Hi, I'm Philippa. Today on Matches Fashion, I'm going to show you how to create 2 flower displays using these really beautiful vases. Now, the vases are works of art in their own right, so I don't want to create something that's going to be over dominant. I want to make sure the display very much considers the vases. So the flowers I've chosen are purposely quite delicate. And because the vases are white, I've also chosen white flowers. I want to make sure the whole design works in a harmony. So taking you through the flowers, there's just 5 varieties, so keeping it really, really simple. We've got some beautiful scabious. I love working with scabious. The delicateness on the petals and those gentle greens and whites that come through. And then we've got a form of hydrangea. It's a really unusual hydrangea. And I love working with these kind of stems. They're amazing how long they last. Most hydrangeas, they don't have a huge longevity, but a stem like this can last for days and days in arrangements. And then we have some phlox, and then Orlea. Now, Orlea is probably one of my favorite flowers. The movement in the stems and those really intricate petals are absolutely beautiful, and for a design like this they're so integral because they're going to help create the movement and the gentleness in the design. And then we have some Asclepia, so again picking up the whites and the greens. So one of the sort of important points of creating a vase design is you want to make sure none of the leaves lie below the water point. The reason for that, as soon as you have anything excess in the water, it builds up bacteria quite quickly, and that decreases the lifespan of your flowers. So starting with the hydrangea stems, and all I'm going to do is make sure it has a really clean cut. I've removed the bottom leaves to make sure nothing lies below the waterline, and I'm going to place that directly into the vase. Now, I want to have the slightly denser flowers placed further down, exactly as you would find in a garden or indeed flowers growing wild. It's the larger flowers are much further down, and it's the more delicate flowers that are then floating and further up. And that's exactly what I want to achieve with this display. So I'm also taking the stem up to one of the vases just to see the height and see how much I need to cut off the stem. And in this case, it's just a very small amount. I'm placing that in. Now, one of the key things with these kind of vases is you want to choose a vase that has a rim. The top of the vase, you want to make sure that that's much narrower than the outer width of the vase. It just means that that can hold the flowers so much better rather than a vase that has a larger opening. It means at that stage you need to have mechanics and various things going in. But a vase like this makes arranging incredibly simple. And selecting one of the stalks just to mix the display up and removing the bottom leaves. And I'm placing them at different angles because I want to make sure this design is completely round. And adding a scabious. And you'll start seeing, so I'm going low and then I'm beginning to go high, and then I'm going to sort of come into the center area. What I don't want to have is a lot of flowers around the base and then a lot of flowers up high. I want to make sure that I've got a graduation. So somewhere around the base and then in the center, the middle section, and then of course coming up high as well. We're just selecting the best stems for each one, and I definitely want to get a bit more height into this vase. And some of the sort of thinner, more narrower stems, they're really beautiful, the way that you have the movement in that. I think with flower arranging, you want to make sure that the design never looks static. You always want to make sure there's plenty of movement in the display. There's nothing, not quite worse, but I never like it when the designs are really compact and tight and sort of full of full-blown roses. I much prefer designs when they've got sort of air going on into them and they've got plenty of sort of space between the stems. Somebody once said to me that a really good flower display, a flower design is brilliant when a butterfly can still fly in between the flower stems. So I think that's what I always try and aim for. So I want to get, so this one here, I've just started having a taller stem. And in fact, I might just keep this vase purely with the Orlea. I rather like the idea of having these vases displayed together and both slightly different. So matching and similar in style, but making sure that there's a real difference between them. So if I'm doing that, I just want to make sure that I've got a good variety in height between the Orlea. So some a little bit lower and other ones a little bit higher. If you have a vase that is really intricate, it never requires too many flowers. It's sort of once you've invested in that piece, it then means it doesn't cost a huge amount when you need the flowers. And I can see in this display that it's rather beautiful the way that it comes out towards the front and the back and the sides, but I definitely want to have something sort of further down into the design. So I'm going to bring a few flower heads here, just a little bit lower. And you can see that that really adds to the depth and the texture of the design. And when you're flower arranging, it's really important just to have a play. There are no fixed rules. In fact, I always love sort of throwing rule books out and just testing and playing and seeing what works best for you. There's something rather beautiful and wild and quite free about that display. I like all the different angles in that one. And coming back to this one, I'm going to add some more scabious into this design. Delicateness with all these petals. It's really beautiful. And probably another of the hydrangea stems. I think one of the Asclepia into here. And you can see it's amazing. It really doesn't take many stems. And a design like this will probably last maybe 5 days. You just need to make sure you change the water every couple of days. You want to make sure that water is really fresh. So placing the stem in here, it's a little bit too high. It sort of dominates over the rest of the flowers. So I'm going to bring this lower. I'm just removing some of the bottom leaves because they're pretty dominant. One of them. Leaving one will be fine. And actually I love the way that leaf then comes over the side of the vase and interrupts that line. And just a couple more or layer into this display just to match the second one. And getting a little bit more height. And it's really beautiful, the hydrangea around the base. They're sort of forming, it's almost like a sort of a collar, sort of a ruffled collar around the lip of the vase. And then you've got the petite stems then extending out. And I think probably just one more flower coming out here with the scabious. Maybe one more. And I love the way that although they work beautifully together, they are very different designs. And there's something beautiful about that in floristry, when you have designs that are absolutely in harmony, but they work beautifully as a unique design on its own.